Hi there, Mark here from Third Shot Sports. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the grips that we can use when we play pickleball. Which grips are most versatile, most useful, and which ones sometimes feel like they're good, but in fact don't help us out very much at all. So let's get started. The grip that you see the very best players use most of the time is what we call the continental grip. I don't know why it's called that, it just is. The continental grip you can find is when the V of your hand, between your thumb and index finger, is right on the top of the paddle handle. It's almost like you're shaking hands or like you're holding a hammer. Sometimes they get referred to as a hammer grip. Okay? So the continental grip, another way you can find it is you can slide your hand down and there it is, right? Like you're shaking hands. This grip's really useful for a few reasons. One, I can hit forehand and backhand ground strokes with it. Okay? So I don't have to worry about changing my grip from forehand to backhand when the play is going on. A second reason that this is useful is you can use it when you volley. So we know that in pickleball there's a lot of time spent up at the net where you're looking to finish the point with volleys. And again, you can imagine if you can use the same grip on forehand and backhand volleys without having to change, that can be a real advantage. There's a third advantage of the continental grip, and that is that it opens the paddle face a little bit. So when you're dealing with low balls, especially at the net, and you're using a different kind of grip, it can be difficult to find the right racket angle. But when you use this continental grip and the racket face is slightly open, it becomes very easy, even on low balls, to be able to send it upwards. Okay? Finally, when you play overhead smashes, when you're finishing the point with that smash, you can still use that same grip to finish the point. So we like the continental grip because it lets us hit pretty much every shot without having to worry about changing and putting your hand in a different position. Okay? So what are the other grips out there that people sometimes use? Well, I see a lot of them. The most common ones are this. You see people take their paddle and they put their hand behind it. Right? They put their hand behind it. We call this an Eastern forehand or sometimes even a semi-Western forehand, it doesn't matter why. It's something that's used in tennis a lot. So why would you use in tennis but not in pickleball? Well, first, in tennis, you have a much further distance that you have to hit the ball. The ball's a lot heavier, the paddle, or racket is a lot heavier, and so having your hand in this really sort of super strong position is actually really useful in tennis. So what's the problem? Why shouldn't I use it in pickleball? Well, again, like we said a second ago, if I'm in this position for my forehand, then when the ball comes to my backhand, either I'm hitting from a super weak position where you can feel the resistance, or I have to change. And again, that change takes time. And it's much better if when you're playing you can just stick with the same grip and deal with the ball that's coming to you. There's a second reason why this grip's not great, and we see it a lot when people are at the net volleying and their hand is behind the paddle. Notice how it tilts the paddle face downwards. Okay? So the problem with this when I'm volleying is I'm up at the net and the paddle's tilted down. Now very often, especially if the ball is low, we want it to go up and over the net. But if I'm down low and it's tilted down, I have to, at the last second, make these little kind of adjustments. And even with pretty good players, when you see them make those adjustments, very often it becomes an error. So again, for volleying, to have that open paddle face to be able to send the ball up, especially when it's low, is really, really useful. Okay? Now, the final grip that I often see people use concerns the backhand. And we know that most people are not comfortable with their backhands. They're not as strong as their forehands, and they feel a lot of anxiety when the ball's coming to their backhand. Well, one of the things that you see people do, and you watch, you'll see it, is they take the paddle and they stick their thumb behind it, right? They think that they're supporting it here, and they start to push, right? So why does this matter? Why is this a problem? Well, when you have this pushing action, it becomes the elbow and the forearm that are sending it. This is a very small body segment. It's hard to get much power from here. So what's much more useful is if you can use that continental grip that we talked about, that handshake or hammer grip, and from here you can now use your arm to send the ball. So it's going to have more power with less effort. Now, changing grips, if you're one of these people who uses the thumb behind or the Eastern forehand, these things, changing grips can be difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. This is something that you're comfortable with, that you, under pressure, you just grab it and that's what do. That's fine. If you are interested in learning to use better grips, there's a few ways you can practice it. One, you can practice on your own with a ball, with a paddle, some space, and just get used to using that continental grip. Just flipping your hand back and forth without having to change the grip. That's one way to get your hand used to that feeling. You can practice with the wall, hitting against a wall with the same grip on forehand side, on backhand side. You can come out to clinics or drills and get some practice on that and some feedback. But if you do want to be a higher level player, using grips that will allow you to send the ball in the way that you want is a really important first step. Thanks, have a great Christmas, see you in the new year.